All right, it says we are live, and we'll give it a couple of minutes since we jumped on early. We've got Ranger 10 in here. I'm sure there's more people going to jump in. But we've got Mr. Harry's Holsters on tonight and Trigger Bar Philosopher. So these are my two wonderful guests and good friends. So we're going to be kind of chopping it up about budget versus premium and any other things y'all want to talk about. So, you know, and we'll go ahead and let y'all introduce yourself in case there's anybody on here that don't know you. But go ahead first, Harry.
I'm Harrison Jones. I'm the owner of Harry's Holsters. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate it. If y'all need a great holster, Harry makes a great holster. Go ahead, Trigger Bar.
Yeah, so Trigger Bar Philosopher, I just have a small YouTube channel.
Yeah, and he's a jack of all trades. And a master of none is what I always say about myself.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. The other day, this guy goes, "What's your title?" And I said, "Head janitor and whatever else is needed." You know, doesn't matter. But yeah, we've got Dirt Track in the house, and we've got Mateo Guns. He is a new subscriber to the channel, so we appreciate it so much. He also has a YouTube channel, so if y'all are all interested, go over and check him out. And there's other people that'll be jumping in here soon. We've only got 7 on now. Maybe people are tied up and stuff, and I didn't know this, but apparently I've had my chat for 1,000 years on Wednesday, but I guess Lucas started him a chat on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock the same time. So I'm like, you know, that could interfere with some things, but you know, who knows? But yeah, we've kind of get into a little budget versus premium, you know, pistols, rifles, you know, like even hell, because y'all have them, I don't, but like, you know, velocity, God, what's the word for them?
Chronograph.
Yeah, chronographs. That's the word I was looking for. I hate when stuff's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it. But kind of get onto that and stuff like that. But, you know, just kind of talk about some things like that. And, of course, if y'all have any questions, throw them out there. I'm sure hopefully more will be jumping on. But if not, it's going to be a slow night, but we can still ramble. But the disastrous effects in the house, too. But do you and I mean, we can go ahead and get into it because that is kind of a question here that Adrian's asking. Do you like 22 rifles, pistols, things like that?
Oh, you guys go.
So I love it. And I think that there is a niche for it. So I you know, I think it's the ultimate survival rifle, right? So I think you can, you know, go off, and if you're going to be going off and all you're going to take with you is what you can carry on your back, I think I'd probably take a 22. Because you can just carry, you know, 1,000 rounds in 2 little boxes, and you know that's pretty compelling. But in terms of like an ultimate self-defense, I'm not like, I don't use it for self-defense personally. Yeah. At times I've had it set up for my wife. I've since moved on to the 5.7 round for my wife, but because she's recoil sensitive. So my father-in-law does it. He's in his 80s now. He keeps a 22 pistol with him. So I definitely think there are use cases for them in terms of self-defense. And you know, I think Big Johnson, you said, I mean, you can make a lot of Swiss cheese with 22.
Yeah. What do you think, Harry?
I mean, I'm not going to trust one for self-defense in a semi-auto just because the reliability aspect. And I've had more malfunctions with mini mags than anything else out there. And also, if you get into a really close grappling situation, you get that slide back on a 22. You just knock it out of battery. It is not easy necessarily to get it back in battery, especially if you don't have use of both your hands. I think it does make sense a lot in a revolver for training because you get a heavy trigger pull. You can really work on that cheaply. But 22 Magnum is probably I've got a 22 mag. I used to carry a 22 long rifle in a revolver when I'd run, but I've switched to a 22 mag because the 22 mag is the Smith & Wesson 351C, which is lighter and it's a lot more reliable than the 43C, which is Smith & Wesson's 22 LR. I used to carry Ruger LCR. So 22 is fun, but it's mostly fun suppressed on like bolt guns, or like I've got a Keltec CP33.
Yeah.
It's a blast suppressed with subsonic ammo. It's okay with supers, but with subs, it's mostly fun to take it with friends and be like, look how cool this is.
Yeah. Hello, Armsman. Armsman is in the house, another holster manufacturer, and we got Bald and Curious in the house. Glad to have you all in here.
That's one thing I like about semi-auto handguns with 22 though, is that it's, at least my experience has been, it's all subsonic, short barrels.
Yeah. I mean, I love 22. I think, and I've said this before, you said this, if you're out in the woods, because the way that I carry 22 ammo, people have laughed at me before, but I'm telling you what, it's awesome. Just get you one of those small Gatorade bottles, the little ones. Hell, you can get like 200 and some odd rounds in those things. So I just kind of put them in my hand and funnel them in there, put the cap on. And I've done this as a test. I actually took the ammo in the Gatorade bottle with no silica gel or anything, and I buried it in my backyard about that deep for, I don't know, probably about 3 weeks. And my water sprinklers were going every day, and took it out. I went and shot it. This was years and years ago, and worked perfectly. I mean, and you can just take that little Gatorade bottle, stick it in your back pocket, and hell, carry 200 rounds around with you if you're out squirrel hunting or whatever, rabbit hunting. I think they're a lot of fun. I kind of see, if you were going to use it as a defense, and granted, we know that it has rimfire is not the most reliable. I would much prefer 5.7, but for like my wife, kiddos, things like that, or a new shooter, I think they're very valuable. Plus, regular dry firing just gets boring. I mean, it just gets boring as shit. So I would rather go shoot 22 on the low and get some sort of a bang. Now, you don't get the same recoil or any of that, but it's just more fun to me. So I see value in that as well. And one of my most relaxing guns is my 22 Precision, my whatever the hell it's called, my precision rifle. I mean, I just lay down in the prone behind it, and I could shoot that damn thing all day, and it's just so freaking relaxing. It's just fun, and kind of makes me feel like a kid again, back when I was plinking. So I don't think there's anything wrong with 22. And like you said, also, and I've said, people with arthritic, hands and stuff where they can't rack a 9mm. I mean, 22s are like nothing. I mean, my wife absolutely loves it, and she can slay with the 22. That's why I'm excited about putting her behind the 5.7. I'm just afraid I won't have that gun anymore. It'll be hers, but it's definitely a lot of fun to shoot. And
the range I'm a member of has a 325 yards, the furthest we can go. And now that you say that, a bolt action 22, putting some steel down there, that's just right at that edge limit where it starts to get interesting. Because so if you get a limited distance range, that is where 22 can get a lot of fun, because wind, everything becomes a lot more pivotal at a shorter range.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I'll go there and I'll lay down to the prone. Now, this is an indoor range, but it's 50 yards. And I'll put up these little tiny targets. They're like little dots. I mean, literally, they're like as big as my pinky. And I'll do 5-shot groups. And that is Lapua Center X, so it's not cheap. But I mean, I can literally rip, a fingernail. It's even smaller than a fingernail, with 5-round groups at 50 yards. Now, there's no wind, there's no, outside, issues, but it's just fun just sitting there, just putting, making a little tiny clover with 5-shot groups. Now, when and I've done it with like just regular old ammo, and it's not near as accurate, but that gun with Lapua Center X it's just stupid accurate. It's just crazy how much fun it is. And that's without a suppressor too. And it's quiet anyway. I think it's 16 inches, but it's a bull barrel. So it's a lot of fun. We got chessboard in the house, Rusty Taylor. Welcome, gentlemen. Glad y'all are here this evening. But so that's kind of the 22 thing. I think everybody should probably at least have 122, whether it be a pistol or a rifle or whatever, because if anything did happen and you had to, live off the land. I mean, hell, I got hundreds of rabbits in my yard because we've got that St. Augustine grass, and man, they are eating that stuff up. They love it. So I can just go out in my backyard and we could have a little buffet if it had to be that way. But let's go ahead and get into the, the budget, versus premium. And like I said, this isn't an argument. This isn't, hey, this is, I don't want to beat anybody up for what they like, but I just kind of want to. We'll get into pistols first, and we can start with polymer pistols, and then we can jump into metal pistols, and then go into rifles or whatever y'all want to do, shotguns, etc. But as far as budget, and I'm talking budget like $300 guns, things like that, $200 guns. As far as that, in plastic or polymer pistols, what do y'all think about? Like is there like, hey, this is the least expensive gun I'll buy, or what are y'all's opinions on that? You can go ahead and go first, Harry.
I mean, everybody has a different budget. They have a different situation financially. I will say with the budget brand, it's not even budget necessarily, because I've seen certain pistols at one point in time that were, let's say, a $750 price point. They had almost as many issues as a Taurus G2C.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then others like, say, Glock. If you get a Glock Gen 5, it's going to be boringly reliable. It's the Toyota Camry of guns.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a G2C is not going to be bad as long as you keep within the expectations of what you want the gun to do. And if you go to something like a Sky, it's probably going to be a piece of crap. Like, I mean, those. But, and then the GX4, the Taurus GX4, I actually really like that design, but they've had a lot of issues with those guns. I like the way they shoot. It's basically, if CZ had made the CZ P10C and made it small and hold a ton of rounds, you'd have the GX4. But reliability and safety issues, everything, clearly it's better to let Taurus make something for 10 years before you start to trust it.
Yeah. What do you think, Trigger Bar?
Yeah, so I wholeheartedly agree with Harry that everyone's got their budget. So number one, I believe if you're not armed, you should get armed. Right. Whatever your budget for that is, you should, set aside, the best that you can do. I heard an interesting argument on this, and I cannot remember the channel. Maybe some of you can remember it. So it's not a unique thought of my own. But of a person that saved up for, like 5 years to get a Knight's armament, with a Night Force scope, and just saved and saved, and then were super disappointed in the groups they were shooting out at 100 yards. And the person commented and said, if you'd bought a $400 PSA rifle and practiced for 5 years, your groups would be a lot smaller, right? It's the loose nut behind the trigger and not the loose nut in the gun, right? And so I think there's a lot to that, right? And maybe, before you go sink your life savings into one gun or something like that, don't do that. Invest in training, invest in ammo, invest in a gun that you can afford. I do think on the budget side, you're rolling the dice. You may get one that runs just fine, and then you may get one that doesn't. I think with all companies, you're rolling the dice a little bit, but on the budget ones, you may be frustrated with the customer support.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm probably the eldest here. I don't know. I think I am, but maybe not. But I've been into guns since I was a kid, and I've had a lot of the less expensive guns back in the day. I've learned from many of them. I mean, even before I did YouTube, I just bought a Sky. I just bought one to test one, because that was back when they had, if it's stolen from you or you have to use it, they would pay. If it was taken, they would pay for it, or if it was ever stolen, they would give you a new one. It was just free. So I was like, hell, I'll buy one and try it out. Gun was a literal piece of shit. I was shooting it, first couple of rounds, and pins started coming out of it. And then the barrel actually came back and hyperextended into the slide. It just snapped everything. And luckily it had what's that warranty, Harry, when you buy?
Davidson's.
Yes, it had the Davidson's warranty on it. So I took it back to the gun store. They instantly just said, hey, here's a credit. I bought something else. I was like, I don't want this piece of shit. And the trigger pull was horrible. They could be better now, but from the ones I've seen, they're not. But, so you've got that. And like I've always said, everybody has a budget. And I just want you to carry something and be proficient with it. I know people who have high points all the way up to, $8,000 pistols. So it doesn't matter to me. And I kind of agree with, when you're first starting out, get something, that is reputable if you can afford it, whether it be a Glock, Smith & Wesson, something like that, to where you can kind of become proficient with it somewhat. And then if you want to save up for your next gun, then you at least have some experience with something. Or if you want to start with a striker fire and then go to a double action, single action, because I've said this numerous times, I kind of feel that, and even a revolver, I kind of feel that people should have time behind a revolver, time behind a double action, single action, a striker fire, and even a single action. Because if you ever had to grab, it wasn't yours, but you had to grab something to defend yourself and, or whatever it might be, at least you would kind of be proficient or at least familiar with that manual of arms. So, and that's not for everybody. I get it. A lot of people don't like double action, single action. They despise it. But I just kind of think that your first gun, you could probably get something and just kind of play around with it. But after that, I do feel that you need to, and by that time, you're probably going to know what you really like. And it might give you more experience to kind of say, okay, this time I'm going to get a Glock, or I'm going to get a CZ, or I'm going to get a whatever. And then, buy some ammo and train with that one and the one you have. And at least you'll have two different somewhat firearms. But like I said, I just think if you stay with a reputable brand, here's another thing, and I've said this a million times. I know people such as Harry brought up Taurus, and I can't remember that other name. It's
Sky
SAR or whatever. They're very inexpensive budget guns. People buy. I know people that have like 10 Tauruses. And at the end of the day, you don't have any value in those, because the second you're like, man, I don't like this gun anymore, and you want to go get rid of it. I mean, say it cost you $400, they're going to give you $150 for it, if that. So there's no resale, or there's no value in that gun. So if you want those kind of guns and you find them used where somebody's already taken the hit, then maybe that would be the time to buy those. But like a lot of my firearms, probably a lot of y'all's firearms, if you sold them and they're kind of, in demand, kind of like cars and other things, if they're more in demand, it has more resale value. And where I'm not saying you're going to sell your guns, but if something hit the fan, okay, and you had to trade something for something else, what are they going to give you? Like, oh, I'll give you 2 Cokes for a freaking Taurus, or whatever the budget thing is. I just think having some sort of resale value can be beneficial as well.
Well, and you could also make the argument, though, it's kind of like having nothing but $100 bills, when sometimes you'd rather just have 5s or 20s versus, because if all you got's 100, you might have to give somebody 100 for $20 of value.
Yeah, and that's true too. That's why I've also said, if you invest in ammo and magnifier, whatever other items people might need, like magazines, something that's always that pretty much somebody's going to need.
So they're just calling out a couple of the comments in the chat. There's been some really good ones, because the suggestion of trade-ins, like there are a lot of really good police trade-ins right now.
Yep.
Like, so it depends on when you're buying. If you're buying in the heat of COVID, you're not getting a trade-in.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're paying full price and you're waiting if you can find it, and you're getting whatever. If you're buying right now, like police trade-ins are amazing. And then like it was brought up, but like the CZ is just an underrated pistol. The CZ P10, and like you can get like someone, like I just had a video out on it, and someone commented that they got theirs for like, I don't know, could we even say, I don't know. We're going to talk about beans, right? And they got them for south of 300 beans. Yeah. And a gun like that for south of that money, brand new, like, and you can get, Glock trade-ins for close to that price too. But I mean, I don't know if you can get a CZ P10 F or C for less than 300 beans. Like, I don't know why you'd look at anything else personally.
So one thing I will say is, when you look at some of these budget guns like the SARS or whatnot, you're going to severely limit your aftermarket. So that's a lot of people will buy one of these guns, think they're getting a deal, and then they'll realize, hey, I want to put new sights on it. I'm trying to find a holster, whatever aftermarket they're trying to do. And there's zero aftermarket for it, or what there is is extremely limited.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
You got to look, and I deal with a lot of people that are emailing me, and they're getting into this knowing next to nothing, and I haven't gotten to some different hobbies myself where I know nothing about it. It's sometimes hard to relate because we're all so invested.
Yeah.
It's just a different level. And
for that reason, the Glock and Smith & Wesson, you bring up good point, Harry, right? Like those two guns have in the US, so much aftermarket support.
And even if you're not going to end up with I hate to say it, SIG and Glock, at least if you're going to go full-size gun, go Glock. If you're going to go smaller gun, go 43X, 48, or 6P through 65 base platform. And the reason I say that, it might not be what you end up with, but all of those are going to be relatively easy to offload. Not saying you're going to not take a hit, because you will, especially depending on when you sell it. If another COVID type situation happens, you might make money, but in most cases you're going to lose a couple $100. But it's still a ton of aftermarket. There's a ton of demand for them. Just go with something.
Oleg's Defense is in the house causing ruckus. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Harry. And like I've always said, I'm not, I enjoy my Glocks, but I'm not a Glock tard, or, however everybody jokes around about that. But I honestly feel everybody should at least own one Glock, just because SHTF or whatever it might be, because you can always find mags, parts, whatever you need for that. It's never going to be an issue. Where other guns, just like you brought up and I brought up in the past, you're definitely going to run into some issues of, either that or you need to buy two of every gun that you like. And I do that as well. Every gun I like, I have two of them, because if something breaks immediately, I've got backups, and, I can switch a slide over to another one or pull a threaded barrel out of one and put in the other, or whatever I need to do.
Except you only have one Deadpool gun, and Deadpool has two guns.
I know. Remember, I had two.
It's not even a Desert Eagle.
No. Well, you know me, I like to buck the system and do something different. But remember, I had the 40 version of that too. So I had two of those, but one was a 40 and one was a 9. But again, those guns, the 40 caliber is super, super rare. They're hard to find. And I had it, and I just, took it with me to a show one time. And, the guy was like, "What do you got there?" So I told him, and he's like, "You want to get rid of it?" I was like, "What are you going to offer me for it?" And he got pretty crazy on that. So I'm like, "It's yours now." So, because honestly, I didn't need it. And what's crazy about that particular gun, when I bought it, the gun store is brand new. The gun store was actually going out of business. So they were like literally giving stuff away. So I bought that gun for a ridiculous price. And they had extended version of mags there for the 40. So I bought all that he had. And, I had those as well. Matter of fact, I still think I have a couple of them. But anyway, that was just one of those kind of things that you bumped into. And, and I shot it, and it shot great. But I'm just like, and honestly, I probably should have kept it. But, it was just the offer he gave me was too good to pass up. So, sometimes that happens.
And at the end of the day, I mean, it's a polymer gun.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, like, value-wise, I think related almost back to cars, the Glock's the Toyota Corolla. A Taurus is like a Kia. And, it'll do the job. It'll work fine. But if that thing starts getting older, you're going to have more problems at an accelerated rate.
Yeah.
And Harry, that's another, I think, underrated comment too, which you just mentioned there, that I think that the thing on the cheaper guns is how long the round count that they're going to last through. But that's a two-edged sword. Someone buying their first gun, are they going to shoot 1,000 rounds a week?
No, that's what I've always said.
They may, but then they're going to be buying more guns.
Yeah.
Right. It's embarrassing how many friends I know of, that I know any, that have bought guns and have never taken them to the range once.
I've got multiple guns in my safe that have never been to the range.
Yeah,
well,
you're
different. I have friends who bought their first and only guns and have never taken them to the range.
But my guns have like under 25 rounds through them, or well in excess of like 2,000 or 3,000. Like, and that's off the variety of them. So,
Well, also what Harry has is he's got guns that have like 9 million dry fires and like 20 live fires. You know,
yeah, there are a lot of those.
So
he's broken guns just dry firing them.
case in point, right? You know, the Grand Thumb did that, what, 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 round review of the PSA AR-15, right? And he's not the only one, right? There's a bunch of others doing them. At the rate I see some people shoot, they're never going to get that many rounds in it.
They're never,
right?
and that
they
was
shoot
also
once at Thanksgiving. So
that was an accelerated test though, because it was full auto. What do you do? Like 3 mags at a time, let it cool down. And he was running. It was a flow through suppressor, but still suppressed. You're going to have more erosion.
Yeah.
That would have gone 15, 20,000 rounds.
Yeah. And like that's a lifetime for some people. So there's a two-edged sword of like, oh, I got to get something better, pay more so I can get longevity. But are you really that person? Like, be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
So I recently got a pretty decent AR with some very high tier optics and stuff on it. And as you get to that point, none of this stuff is perfect. Like, everything has its pros and cons. I have an I got the Night Force Attacker 1-8. It's extremely durable. It works mediocre though, as far as the clarity's not that great. It's fine, but it's not what you expect for the price point. And also the 1X is not that great as well. Like, I would have probably gone with a $1,500 optic and got better performance for that gun. But so at a certain point, you just have to try stuff to find out. But you're not necessarily always getting performance past a certain point. I guarantee it's more durable than the $1,500 optic by a long shot, but it's not that much. It's worse in a lot of aspects as well.
The flip side is I can tell. I mean, I can still shoot pretty good groups with my Arrowhead Swamp Fox 1 to 10.
Yeah,
like I can shoot, at 100 yards groups that are touching, right? But when I put on my Primary Arms PLXC, the difference between a $400 optic and a 12, I got mine for $1,200, right? Is you just look at it and you're like, wow,
yeah.
Like, this is flipping amazing. I'm like on my Arrowhead, I'm like squinting, trying to get it. Just, I can only see part of the, like, I don't know. It's just weird. I can't see very clearly, and you got to be right on. And it's just like, even that's bench rested, right? But versus the other one, you can be, moving and running, and you see everything perfect with it. So
like
there is on that real budget tier up to somewhere in there that you do get some performance hits, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a curve.
Yeah.
Like, and I think for low power variable optics, it's around $1,500.
Yeah.
That's like the primary is probably the peak, whatever their high end 1 to 8s are. Yeah. Is probably the peak. But, are you going to be better suited though? Like you said, put together a $500 PSA AR, buy a complete one, and then get a good $600 optic. Get a decent flashlight. Hey, you're $1,500 into a rifle that's completely set up and can do a lot versus paying $1,500 for your base rifle and then you're running irons. You're running plastic Imbus Pros so you can save up for something.
Yeah. And that all goes back again to budget and things like that. And I've always told people, if you've got a basic AR and it's working well for you, then save up and don't just buy another PSA or buy something budget. Maybe on your next one, save up, because that's the thing. When people, and I have buddies who do this, I'm like, save up. You've got plenty of this or that or this, but save up and get what you really, really want. All of a sudden they come up with $800 because they've saved and saved and saved. And they're like, it's just burning a hole in their pocket. And I'm like, don't buy anything right now. Just wait till you save up another $800 and you have $1,600 or whatever, and then you can, buy something. What are you wanting? They're like, I'm wanting this. And I'm like, what's the price of everything? And they're like, $3,500. And I'm like, okay, just keep saving. But man, they'll call me, God, man, I saw this thing for whatever price, should I buy it? And I'm like, no, because you have your ultimate goal that you've set. And some of them cave, some of them don't. But, I've saved up for guns. I'm not made out of money. I mean, I save up and budget for what I want, and I'm pretty good about getting what I want if I want something bad enough. I will save and, put other shit on the back burner for a long time. That's why some of these play guns, I call them play guns or whatever, these were things that I had or I had already planned to buy other things, and then these came afterwards. Like I'm late to the party with the PSA Rock. I'm late to the party with the CP33. Those guns have been out for a while, but I was like, okay, now I want to grab them. I'm pretty fixed with what I have now already. So
the Arm Zone brings up like the CP265 AXG Legion. And I think that's a good example of like, I've got the Legion and I've got the regular macros. Shoot them side by side, you can't really tell a difference. But you hold that Legion in your hand, that metal frame just feels much more quality. Gives you that special little feeling. It's probably like a $400 or $500 premium for it.
Probably.
You can't really justify that from a practical standpoint. Yeah. But there's something to be said, hey, I just want this. And I think you got to realize what type of consumer you are. Yeah. Like, are you somebody who's looking for every dollar of value, or are you just somebody who wants nice things? Yeah. I've been both at different times.
Oh, so have I. I think maybe we all have,
I go back and forth.
Yeah. And when y'all were talking about the scopes earlier, I've said that through several of my chats. There's a lot of scopes that will work, and I have some, less expensive scopes. But I'm telling you, when you get, like a Razor or, a Night Force or something like that, and you're looking at your like 1 to 6 here, your budget $500 one, and then you look at your, $2,000 one, it's like, holy crap, you can see somebody's facial hair, and it's the same, both of them are 1 by 6, 1 by 6. So, quality is quality, when it comes down to whatever it is, guns, cars, whatever it might be. So I think, and I know people that have 15 ARs and they have 15 $300 scopes, and they're like, it's good enough. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But if you've ever experienced something different or tried it, then you're going to kind of be like, okay, yeah, I really like the PID. I want to be able to see a little better, a little clearer. It's pulling in more light, especially if it gets a little darker outside. There's all kinds of benefits to it. I'm not saying everybody has to buy a $2,000, $3,000 scope. That's not what I'm saying. But don't get the bottom of the barrel. Maybe get the mid tier or a little bit better, because it really kind of does make a difference. To me anyway.
Yeah. So Clyde asked a question about suppressors.
Suppressors, yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts? I know you expanded in the comments, Sugar Bar, but what do you?
Yep. And what his question was, I had it marked here. There it is right here. I'll throw it up just so we can see it real quick. He's asking, I have a suppressor question, looking for a do-it-all suppressor for a 10-inch 5.56 300 and 16-inch 5.56 308. Will I be doing okay with one suppressor, or I should do caliber-specific cans? And should it be titanium or stainless steel?
So I thought I was buying my one and only suppressor, and I think I'm into, I can't count them on my hands now. And so be careful for that rabbit hole you chase. But here are my thoughts. The very first suppressor I bought was a Dead Air Wolfman, because I had this thought of like, I'm only going to buy one. And it's a pretty unique suppressor because it's a 357 caliber 357 suppressor, but with a key micro break from Dead Air, you can shoot 5.56, 7.62 by 39, a bunch of calibers. You can't shoot 308. But that suppressor is amazing because I can put it on everything. And you know what? I run at 300 blackout supers, 300 blackout subs. It may still be one of my most quiet suppressors. And even when I run it on a 5.56 gun, it's quiet. Could I bring out Pew Science's, test regime and prove that it's not as quiet as a dedicated one for 5.56? I am sure I could. But when I'm just out shooting at the range, it's super sweet. And you just get a big old smile on your face because you're shooting something suppressed and it's super fun. So I think you can go bigger and still have a good time. My main recommendations right now are looking at, especially if you're doing a traditional AR-15 type gun, is get a 7.62 can. If you're going to go for one can, get a 7.62 and get some kind of flow-through technology. It doesn't have to be OSS, but they're a great company, or Huxworks as they're called now. They make the Huxworks 7.62 Ti flow through. They get the 7.62 Ti, 7.62 flow that isn't Ti, and now their new Ventum that has the hub adapter. And so I think that those are great ones. I also have a test on my channel of the new Yankee Hill machine flow through can that's only a 5.56. That's the only thing they offer right now. That one's awesome. So there's a lot of great ones, but I don't like eating gas in my face. And so I do think flow is good. I just hit, and I'll come out with a video later, I just hit why you need flow through on 300 blackout subsonics, because some guns are only built to run subsonics with a normal suppressor and not a flow through jackal. And so there can be problems with that. So it depends on what you're doing, but yes, I would go 7.62. I'll let you guys talk about the other aspects, stainless and titanium. Weight is an issue, but I'll shut up.
Go ahead, Harry.
So again, how much you're going to use a suppressor? I think the titanium, like the Huxworks, they're rated for what, around 8,000 to 12,000 rounds, somewhere in that, depending on the firing schedule. Are you ever going to reach that? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. You got to weigh that in. I think titanium makes a lot of sense. My understanding with the Huxworks is you got to shoot supers through it, and then they will not spark. But most titanium cans will spark. Again, maybe an issue for you, may not, depends on your application.
Harry, I heard that's only in the first 200 rounds. That's what the manual I thought said. Is it
in the Huxworks, or
yeah,
specifically in the Huxworks, but most other titanium cans will continue
keep sparking. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So, and I do think you have to. I don't like if you were to shoot 200 rounds of subs. I'm not sure that would do it, but I think 200 rounds of supers will.
Okay.
Clean it out or do it, burn out whatever they're trying to burn out. I really think with cans, it really does come down to the gun you're shooting. What you're like, are you throwing this on AR? How is it gassed? Because you might have a flow through can on a very gassy AR, and it's still gassier than a non-flow through on a really well tuned AR. It just, there's so many variables in here, and we can't even get to all of them. So I say go for multiple cans if you can, but 30 cal is definitely the way to go. It's a good starting place.
Yeah.
And if you want to be super quiet, you're not going to get as quiet with a flow through can and 300 blackout subs, but you're not going to get quiet enough for the flow through not to make sense, in my opinion, with supersonic. Like supers just run better with flow through cans. It's more enjoyable experience.
Yeah. My opinion, I do like titanium. I've got a titanium can. Definitely your first can should be a 7.62 can, I believe. And it works great on 5.56. Everything's freaking loud. 5.56 is loud with damn near everything. So it doesn't really matter. But when you get into 308, it's definitely quieter. 300 blackout's really quiet. And depending on your flow through cans are louder. I've never owned a flow through, but I've shot a buddy of mine's comparing it to mine. And mine was quieter than his with exact ammo, exact gun, that kind of thing, or similar guns, same caliber. But, like me, myself, and this is just something that maybe some people will give me a little hate for, but the only pistol can I will run is a 22 on a pistol. I am not a 9mm pistol guy. Now, granted,
so fun.
I know. Hang on. 9mm, if you have a sub gun, I think, you need one. But just sitting there with a pistol, like a 9mm pistol and a can, it just, and I'm just saying for myself, I'm not hating on anybody. It's just not for me.
At an indoor range, I agree with you, but you go outdoors.
I've shot them outdoors. I have. They weren't mine, but I've shot them. And I was just like, put it this way. When you first do it, it's like, oh man, this is cool. But would I continue to do it or want it? Not really. Not me. Not me. But my particular 22 can will work on my 5.7. That's one reason I bought a 5.7, and it works on my 22 pistols, 22 rifles. Little PDW things. So it's super fun. I wish I would have gotten a different can. The Dead Air Mask has the same threads when you take it off, so you take the damn can apart sometimes, and that pisses me off. But it is what it is, and I could Loctite it, but I don't think you should. They should do reverse threads, in my opinion. But that's just a me thing. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy the 7.62 can. I run it on my 308, 5.56, all that stuff. It's pretty great. And what I do is I have the Q cherry bomb on a bunch of my guns, and I just move them between guns. It's super easy, I don't have any issues with that. The ones that I do. Will I buy more cans? Probably. But the only reason I'm hoping, and I don't know if it's going to happen, but the Texas suppressor law that they're trying to pass, I really hope it goes through where it's a Texas only suppressor. Where if they're bought here, made here, they can stay here without the NFA. I just hope that passes, but we'll see. I'm not depending on it. But does everybody need to own a suppressor? Is it a must? In my opinion, I don't think so. I don't think it's a must. But when you have one, you definitely appreciate it.
I mean, it enhances my shooting.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy shooting just a little bit more. I love them. That's why I kind of have developed an addiction for them.
Yeah.
Here's a mistake that I made as new to cans. So my first one was the Wolfman that I'm actually really happy with, because that is so much fun on my B&T GHM 9, right? It's a sub 9mm gun, and running that suppressed just brings a smile to your face. My second gun was an integrally suppressed gun, and I thought I'd save a tack stamp, right? So it's a 10.5-inch barreled gun with an integral suppressor on it for an overall length of 16 inches. And I would not do that over again.
Is it a YMH upper?
No, it's Radical, which, they're not great quality, but I've actually never had a malfunction. That's not why. It just smokes the crap out of me. Like like it's supposed to have an adjustable gas block, but it doesn't adjust. Like, I think I've got it all the way down as far as they'll let me adjust it. And it's still like every shot. I have it's just smoking back. You're just breathing in lead and gas and gunpowder fumes to the max.
I think, like I said, I don't think everybody has to have a suppressor, but I think, for me, the 22 and the 30 cal is the most fun, in my opinion. If anything, like looking back at it now, I'd probably buy another 22 and maybe another 7.62. I might get a flow through, so I'd have flow through and a non-flow through. And then, a couple of 22 cans that both also shot 5.7, 17 HMR, that kind of stuff. I would want to get not just a 22 LR can.
And I think one thing, you really do have to be honest with yourself about what you're expecting out of that can. Because if you want to run subsonic 300 blackout, my choice, like I see Clyde talking about the Trash Panda and Thunder Chick. If I'm running subsonic 300 blackout, Thunder Chicken all day long. I'm thinking about getting one and doing like the homemade SD build on my Honey Badger pistol, and it'll be insane. But you run that same gun with supers and you lose the advantage. You might as well go Trash Panda and get a shorter can. But both those cans are fairly gassy when you're running supers. They're great when you're running subs, but you're better can choices to run supers, in my opinion. So you really start dialing in and you realize each can is kind of built for a specific mission set.
And see, that is why I like the Trash Panda, because it is smaller, shorter. Granted, one is quieter, the Thunder Chicken, but, it's kind of if I'm picking a jack of all trades, a master of none, that's what I would pick. Because I just want to save a little weight, little length, things like that. And to have it I've shot both of them. The Thunder Chicken wasn't mine, It was Jacob's, but I shot his versus mine, and I'm like, I mean, it was hard to, and I was even in an indoor range, and it was really hard to tell. So I'm like, if I'm outside, I don't know if I could tell. I mean, with my hearing, whatever, I'm sure somebody could pick it up. Or if Pew Science or one of those guys had all the mics everywhere, I'm sure they would definitely pick it up. But, you know, it comes to the point where, you know, I don't, and another thing, I don't really want, here's just something I think about, and tell me if I'm wrong, because you guys have tons of suppressors, but I have 2 suppressors. That's, y'all will have, I look at it this way, y'all could potentially have more visits than I would ever have. So that's, you know, from people don't want visiting us. That's kind of my thought.
Yeah.
More NFA crap you have.
I actually disagree with that. I think the more you have, the more they think you're playing by the rules.
Okay, well, it could be.
I think it's the guy who I was
Who
in
has
the gun
2?
store today, the guy who has the cleaning solvent trap adapter that he ordered off eBay or whatnot. That's the guy that's going to get the visit.
Oh, well, of course, but you know what I
Or
mean.
binary triggers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I've kind of shared this in some other things. I did some government work for a long time. And if they don't know anything about my past or who I am, then they weren't doing their job for a lot of years when they hooked me up to polygraphs and did background investigations and other things like that. So there isn't anything in my life they don't know about already. And so I know I shouldn't be as trusting as I am. It's just like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
The best way to fight the system is to get as many people like us with as much stuff, because then it becomes, you know, if they just start trying to round stuff up, it becomes a very hard task when they have limited resources.
Yeah,
that's true. I don't think it would happen in certain states. I just really don't. I don't see how that would happen in, you know, maybe Texas or Florida or some of the other super pro states. But you never know. I mean, anything's possible. But as far as, you know, Disastrous Effect is asking a question. What suppressors do y'all recommend for a 308 Banshee with a 12.5-inch barrel?
I'd probably give Flow Through Huxworks, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a 12.5 308, and I run the trash panda on it, and I like it. But, you know, the Huxworks would probably be one that I would get to have the flow through.
And I'll say this as well, like depending on where you shoot makes a big difference. So if you're shooting on a range that is regular, has a good breeze, and it's dry air, you may not need a flow through can to have an enjoyable experience. Yeah. If I shoot in the fall, so I have a LaRue Surge, which is a flow through can, but it's all integral with the gun. Shooting it this fall with a slight breeze on the range, no humidity, no gas to the face whatsoever. Taking it out a couple weeks ago when the humidity's high in North Carolina in the late spring, early summer, I had a couple tears. It wasn't that gassy, but I did have a couple tears.
I like how you just kind of said that, you know, you just kind of just said, I have a LaRue Surge. Like, it's not a big deal. I just kind of like how you just flowed that right out.
That's freaking awesome.
Because that is a very, very cool gun. A lot of people might not know what a LaRue Surge is, but it's pretty badass.
Alex of A&R has a great video on it. Go check it out.
Yeah, and that's a pretty badass gun.
I'll admit I don't know. So one of the other things the flow through is great at is if you can't really make a lot of adjustments to your gun. I don't know enough about the Banshee. If it has an adjustable gas block, if it has tunable, I think the Banshees are their radially designed blowback guns. So they're not a traditional buffer system. So on your tuning of your gun with the suppressor, you usually have your buffer system that you can tune. And then you also have your gas block that you can tune if you have an adjustable gas block. And then you can also adjustable bolt carrier group. Yeah. Right. So those are three things. But for example, Jackal, you only, on the Jackal, you have one. It's just you can't change out the bolt carrier group because it's proprietary. No. You have no buffer system because that's proprietary. So you only have their adjustable gas block. So I don't know what the Banshee is, but knowing that it's a more of a proprietary system, I would argue that a flow through is even more important, because what the flow through does, it means it should shoot the same way it does without a can.
Yeah.
So
He's saying it's a buffer and a 308 gas impingement.
So I've got the CMMG Descent, and that one is a 6.5 inch 300 blackout. That gun will not run subsonic with the SIG SLX can on it. Now I can get it to run subsonic if I open the gas up all the way, but then it beats everything to death with supers. So they have the same adjustable gas block on it.
Yeah.
I just think I'd go flow through with it.
Well, sounds like he has a buffer, so maybe he can with the
leave it to SIG to screw something up. I'm joking.
Oh, he says only 9 and 10 are radially delayed. Okay.
Now, as far as we've kind of talked about, all that stuff, but let's get in, we've got a little bit of time left, but let's get into, premium or, higher end guns. What do you see the value of having those, or is there a value, or, is there a necessity, or is it just a want? What do you see in the premium line of rifles, pistols, things like that? Which y'all's opinion? And one of y'all can go first. Harry, go first.
So premium, define premium. A lot of people are going to find it off price point. And there are some brands, like I will say this, the LaRue is a good example because it is the best gas AR I've ever shot. It was not cheap, but the engineering, the quality control, everything seems to be there in that gun. Now, there's also some features on it. It's insanely heavy. Is it worth the money? That's something everybody have to decide for themselves. But then there are other brands that have the price tag. They have a nice Cerakote job on them. They have some cool milling features, but your quality control is going to be similar to PSA.
Yeah.
Like it just, you have to go brand by brand and sometimes product line by product line to really get a good answer on that.
Yep. The way I tend to think about it is I just expect longer reliability out of them. So for me, not same tiers, it's not, I'm not talking, I've never even shot a Knights or is it LRW?
LWRC, LNT.
Yeah. I haven't even shot those, so I can't even tell you about those, but I have a Daniel Defense and I have a Geisley. And those are my kind of higher end guns, and they just work. Of course, haven't really had issues with my PSA either, but I also don't have thousands of rounds in the PSA one. So,
yeah. I would say. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
ARs are insanely reliable for the most part, and once you get them tuned right.
Yeah. Clyde, yeah, I've got the Trash Panda. It depends on the circumstance. Inside ranges, you can get a little bit of gas in your face. And what I've done is I've tuned the buffer as well, so it's not as bad on a lot of ammo, but sometimes I can get it, sometimes I can't. So it just depends. What I look at is premium. Granted, it doesn't have to cost a ton, or it can cost a ton, depending on. But what I look at is something that, that I really want, that I like the features of, that I like the way the quality is built, the I guess I should say the unflooded market of a particular thing like Staccato. There's shitloads of them, so I'm not saying that. Matter of fact, I think Masterpiece Arms in their 2011s is a nicer fit and finish than a Staccato. But do they both run? Yeah, they both run great. So it depends on what you're looking for. Now, as far as rifles, I've got the Lancer 308. The quality is unbelievable on that thing. It's built like a freaking tank. The POF, it's built pretty nicely, and it's kind of got some unique features because the 12.5 308, the thing only weighs chip 5 stock. It's only like less than 7 pounds or something like that, 6 pounds.
Might be like 5'9" or something.
Like 5 pounds, 8 ounces with nothing on it, I believe, originally. And it's a super fun gun, but it's also built like an AR-15, but with a 308, mag lower area. So it's got some unique features. You know, I kind of like unique stuff that you can't walk into the store and just there's 15 of them in there. That's kind of what I like. I like stuff where it's just not everybody has it, and if it's something I'm interested in, you know, that's kind of what I look for. I like a lot of custom builds. I've got some ARs that are one-offs. They're actually custom milled lowers, so they're not readily available. I've had Fire for Effect build me a couple of them. So, and they're actually out of business, but they're great quality. I mean, very unique. You know, I like stuff like that I'm going to spend my money on. And the fit and the finish is awesome. So I haven't had any issues with those. But do you have to have them? No. I mean, you don't. And like we're talking about the other super high priced optics, I enjoy them. You know, and as my eyesight has gotten worse as I've gotten older, I can appreciate that. But could the average person with perfect vision get away with other optics? Sure, they could. I still could probably, but I just kind of, you know, I kind of look at my stuff as if I want it, is it a must? Probably not. Is there something that's just as good? Probably so. But that's what I want. I like the uniqueness of some of my stuff. So, but not everything. You know, I have some stuff that everybody else has, but then I'll take that and kind of customize it to the way that I like it. Because not everything's built for me or to my liking, but I'll try to make it that way if I really enjoy the gun. Threat cadres in the house. Hell, builder shooters in the house. But, you know, that's just, like I said, you know, I want everybody to be armed. I don't care if you have a $200 gun or a $150 gun or a $10,000 gun. It doesn't make a shit to me. You know, I want everybody to be able to protect themselves, their family, you know, and whatever works for you or whatever's in your budget, I say use it. I would never discredit anybody, you know, for the budget class they're in. I've got friends that have way more money than me, and I've got friends that have way less money than me. So I don't.
We all have friends with way more money than us who have way worse guns.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
Bad priorities.
Well, and that's another thing, you know. And like I've said before, I've got buddies. Y'all probably have buddies. I've got buddies who have 15 ARs, and they're all freaking 5.56. And if you get into like a 10.5 or a 16-inch, they've got like 8 or 10 of those or 10.5s of 5.56. Same freaking guns. And then 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, you know, AR-15, 5.56, 16-inch guns. And I'm like, you know, granted, if something happens, you know, and you're going to pass them out to family members, and you've got that many family members, or you're arming your community, hey, go for it. I can do the same thing, but I like 2 or 3 of the same things, but not 15. I mean, that's just me. I just don't, you know, there's a difference between, you know, having something that's common, or having, you know, like if you grab this gun, it's going to feel the same. But if you grab an AR, honestly, as long as you've got the hand space, I don't feel the difference between at least a 12.5 to a 16 or an 18 or a 20. I just really don't. Now, granted, you're going to get more velocity the longer the barrel, but it depends on the different roles you need it for. I don't. Go ahead.
Brings up a good point too, though, that like some will be just gassed perfectly from the factory. That's one of the things you get with like these higher end guns is they take the time to get that right. And that makes the biggest difference out of shooting. When you get a real nice shooter AR-15, it's because it's gassed right.
Yeah. And we all know that guy with 15 ARs that has 2 of those that are just gassed perfectly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and that's
randomly.
Randomly.
And it gets into this. If you have a lot of rifles, and I've said this before, and y'all probably have too, if something were to go down, okay, I'm not, you know, wishing that or anything, but if something were to go down, are you going to have your gun that you really haven't shot a lot and you don't have a lot of rounds behind? Is that going to be your go-to? Probably not. So I would invest the time and the practice and all that other stuff in maybe a couple of those guns, and those are your go-tos, and the rest are kind of like, hey, if I had to use them to barter for things, you know, the other ones maybe could go, or some of those other ones, or I had to upfit people, and I've got those too. I've got my go-tos, and then I've got, hey, this one's good, but I don't have as much time behind it. And that could be pistols, rifles, shotguns. We haven't even gotten into shotguns, but I just also feel if someone's building like their ultimate thing, definitely have a Glock, maybe another striker fire gun, maybe a single action gun, a shotgun, and maybe a couple of ARs or AR-15 and 308 or a 300 blackout. And the good thing, and y'all know this, the good thing about having a 5.56 is you can have a dedicated 5.56 and then put a 300 blackout upper on it, and you've got kind of 2-in-1. So that's kind of the jack of all trades with that one, and you can use the same mag, same bolt carrier group. That's a good thing to have in common, as long as they're both pistols or both rifles or whatever. In some states, you're not mixing and matching and getting yourself in trouble.
So one thing I've seen in class is, like you're talking about having the different guns. I've seen a lot of people they'll bring 3 or 4 different rifles to classes, and every time they switch one up, they've got them all set up so differently that they don't know how to run them.
Yeah.
And they're all AR-15s, but they've got their lights, they've got their foregrips, they've got different bolt releases. One of them might have a bad lever. Like, they've got to where it's almost a different manual of arms. Or keep your charging handles the same, keep your VFGs in the same place, your foregrips, keep your light, your activation pads, everything. Try to keep that as consistent. And then, hey, maybe this has a 1-to-6 on it, but this other gun has a red dot.
Yeah.
Try to keep it consistent across the board where you can.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I've got several of mine set up with, the same lights and the same prism optics and stuff like that. So it's commonality if I need to jump into something like that. And then, I've got the red dot setups with the magnifiers and then the scopes, and thermals. So I think it's good to have a little bit of everything, but, and that's another thing. And I'll admit it to everybody in this chat and everything. I can get down with red dots and magnifiers. I can get down with red dots. When I get into scopes, I'm not the most, knowledgeable person in the world. I'll admit it. I know how to work them and how to, adjust them and things like that, but I'm not the scope guru, and I'll never claim to be. It's just not me. Learn it, yes, but it gets to where I don't spend enough time with that particular setup. Sometimes I get bored easily. Maybe y'all do too. So, and then also, do y'all go for do you want a heavy setup that you would run on a tripod and then one that you would carry, or do you really care about a heavy type gun, that you'd run on a tripod or more in the prone? Is that a big deal to you?
For me, it's not. I mean, personally, in my area, if anything goes really bad, there's not a lot of shots over 300 yards.
No.
5.56 is probably more than sufficient for most things, but I could see setting up a hunting rig for shooting off a tripod if I leave the state of North Carolina to go hunting.
Yeah. I mean, there might be a time where you have to take out engine blocks and shit like that, so, might not be a bad idea to have one, tripoded up in your front room or something if something got really crazy. This one would be right up Trigger Bar's alley. What do you think about the S-Bar?
Yeah. Do you like gunsmithing?
Yeah.
That's my...
Yeah, Trigger Bar's got a whole series on his.
Yeah. I love it now. I really do. I love that gun now because it runs great. I got it set up how I want it. It's even lighter than it came from the factory. It works fantastic. And I put the Huxworks on it. I run it the same that I run suppressed and unsuppressed. I run the same gas setting on it, and runs all types of ammos. It's not a like precision rifle, right? But I've got groups under 1 MOA. Most of the time it's 1.5 MOA. Pretty consistent. And for the form factor, it's the same freaking weight as my Daniel Defense, as my Geisley, as my 5.56 300 blackout guns. It's the same weight. Of course, now when you put a loaded magazine in it, it's not. right? And carrying the mags, 25 round 308 mag is going to be pretty heavy for carrying around. But in terms of like hunting, the question is, do I trust my life with it? I think I trust my life with it now. If you asked me 6 months ago, I would have said hell no. But it's been a journey. I've had so many issues with it. I had to send it back for Ruger to get a new bolt carrier group. I had to put my own gas block on. I had to, I spent probably 600, 700 rounds just testing it for reliability.
Yeah.
And of 308, 600 or 700 rounds of 308, like that's part of my life savings.
Yeah. It's not cheap. I had one question written down that I did not want to forget, because I want everybody's opinion, because I get asked this a million times. Y'all probably do too. What is your favorite pistol caliber, and what is your favorite rifle caliber? Go ahead, Harry.
Is this a practical question or nostalgia?
And it's not that you have to pick one, but just if you had to pick one pistol caliber that's like your do-it-all favorite, or however you want to put it, and then your favorite rifle caliber.
Right. Honorable mention to 38 Super, just because it's cool as hell, and you can load those to go be pretty hot. 9mm though, practicality wise.
Okay. Now what about rifle?
In my area, 300 Blackout's pretty solid.
Okay. What about you, Trigger Bar?
Yeah. I love everything I touch. So you're asking me to pick favorites amongst my kids.
Yes. You're picking your favorite children right now, or your child. Yes.
So, I don't know. I've done a lot of reloading for 308 and spent a lot of time on that. So I'd probably say 308 for my rifle.
Okay.
And then pistol, I mean, practicality, it's 9mm, right? Yeah. That's what I go to for everything. But I love 10mm. I love 357 SIG. I love 5.7. Yeah. But, I mean, look, if I'm going to choose one gun to end up with, it's probably going to be 9mm. So yeah, it's just cost and all those other cost, capacity, performance. It kind of does all of those.
Availability of the guns.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like literally, like I know everyone says this, but like, I feel like the gun is it's a tool in your toolbox. Yep. So what am I doing? Am I gutting an elk on a mountaintop at 11:30 p.m., which I've done, where I've seen mountain lion scat and I've heard bears that day. I want my 10mm with my rifle's over by the tree and I'm gutting the elk. Yeah. I have my 10mm on my hip. But when I'm in, downtown Philly, I want, a higher capacity 9mm gun. Yeah. When it's my wife shooting, it's going to be 5.7. Yeah. Right. If it's, in some parts, every now and then I just like to carry 357 SIG. Feel like I'm the white settlement church dude, and I may need to one shot stop someone, So
yeah, there you go. Nothing wrong with that. Mr. Jack, I think, was Jack something, I think. Yeah. But yeah, and then, of course, honorable mentions for me would be 22. And I shot 5.7 way back in the day, but I'm really enjoying the 5.7 again. So I'll give it an honorable mention. And of course, it is center fire versus rim fire. So I will definitely say that I enjoy it. But ultimately, it's going to be the 9mm capacity, etc. And then my favorite, I love 308. I like 5.56, but for pretty much what I would urban, whatever I need to do, it is 300 Blackout. So, and this is where we could all differ. I like subs, but I love super. So, because, speed and other purposes, but for quietness, of course, you can't beat a sub.
So have you guys done a lot of testing with supers and subs to see what the point of impact deviation is between the two?
Yeah, it's at 50 yards is pretty crazy. I mean, it's, what is it? What did I get? I think it was like 9 inches it was something, it was pretty drastic.
What is it, straight vertical drop?
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's just straight down. It wasn't like
Is it a 1 in 7 twist? Probably.
This one is, yeah. This particular one I did the test with, and it was with the Trash Panda, on both.
So with my Q guns, which have the 1 in 5 twist, I'm getting 5 inches, roughly 5 inches low. At 50 yards, it was 5 inches low and 5 inches to the right.
Both
You're
suppressed.
getting spin drift on it.
It's yes.
1 in 5, you're getting spin. That thing is screaming. So
I'm worried about that with the 8.6 blackout too.
Yeah.
I'm super interested in that, but I'm worried about that spin.
I've got one coming, or it's at Michael's. It's at Lynx Defenses. He's my dealer, but
Your dealer.
yeah, I'm waiting for.
He is an FFL, so
I know, but
I know
it is an addiction that we're working with here.
we just got a strike. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the stamp to come back, but I'm gonna set it up just to run subs. But I'm really worried that 25 yards, it's gonna be shooting 5 inches to the left and 50 yards dead on, and 100 yards 5 inches.
But see, I don't think that's where it's going to come into play, because you're dealing with a freaking 338 Lapua. I mean, that is not a light bullet.
Yeah, but north of 220.
I know, but that
But
thing's
it's not the wind; it's the angular velocity that's
because that's a 1 in 3 twist on the 8.6.
right.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess once you put it on paper, you'll know for sure. I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be all that bad. I don't think it's going to be.
I'm anxious to see your testing.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, but.
And I will say, I haven't set up the. I want to take my one gun out to my 300 blackout bolt gun out to 300 yards with supers, just to say I've done it.
Wow.
But if I set it up to shoot subsonics, I'm not sure, if I just move that, I'm not sure if it's going to move that 5 inches, if it's going to continue to spin right or not.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. At 100 yards, does it shoot 10 inches to the right?
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, if it's linear, right, which it should be, it should, as you adjust for that and get it zeroed at 100, it should just stay on that same path. So
that's what I'm thinking. So I think once you have it set, I don't think you're going to see. Now, then again, let's say you change a little bit of bullet weight, or you change complete projectile or whatever. You could have a little bit of deviation from there, but if you stay with the same thing and it's adjusted for that, I think you're going to be pretty good to go.
Another thing I want to get your guys' thoughts. I don't think Michael would have a problem with me sharing this. He's got some old expired soft body armor. Did you guys see the Grand Thumb test, how that 8.6 just bores through the ballistics gel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm wondering with Full Metal Jacket if that'll have any impact on maybe subsonic ammo being able to go through soft body armor. If it
soft body armor,
because it's almost like a drill bit.
That's what I'm saying. It should just. I mean, you would think physical, with the physical or the physics of it, it would just rip right through it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, will that spin? Because if you took the same, we're going to shoot it with a 9mm going faster, just pure velocity, and it's going to probably bounce right off or deform. Yeah. But I'm just interested to see, because I think it might actually penetrate soft body armor.
Well, I think it will, because once it how it hits the back and poops it out, I bet it's going to punch it, and it's probably going to punch right through it. But it's going to really devastate it, is what I would think.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Q's claims on the angular velocity and damage that angular momentum can do are pretty interesting, and I think it's it works with a drill.
Yeah,
why not? Right?
Yeah. I mean, Brian's bringing up a point. Also when we were talking about the 300 blackout earlier, like in my holographic sight, I've got it set up for supers, where it's right basically at the center dot, and then it's got a drop compensator, inside my Huey, where it's got the little triangle, and that's automatically for your subs. And that is pretty accurate, like at 50 yards, it's pretty set. But, in the holographic, you're looking at this much distance, However, in real life on the target, you're looking at that much distance. You know what I mean? So it you can kind of see, like, I'll aim for the lower triangle and it will hit lower, but it's always hitting there, between subs and supers. But I just think, I think that would be a cool test, and again, I keep, and I know that some 5.7, because I know Trigger Bar's done these tests. I personally haven't, but with some of the 5.7, granted it's a little bitty sucker, not a big monster pill, but some of that will go through soft body armor, but and then here we go with this again, and it was, this guy was telling me, I made a comment, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good round, blah blah blah, and he came back and he said, well, what if somebody has on body armor? He didn't say steel plates or soft body armor, and my comment back to him was, take out the growing, he ain't gonna walk. So I'm like, you got your people wearing body armor and stuff, you get in that girdle and they're not going to keep running around.
Right.
I've got a buddy, and both of y'all know him, that was in the shit. He popped on the chat earlier, but he told me some real world stuff where, they're taking out growings, and people weren't walking away. And then the next guy, he'd be laying there, and they'd go to try to pull him out, and then you take out that guy's growing, and there's two of them there. So, all's fair in war. So,
Yep.
But anything y'all want to, we're about 8:16. I don't know how late y'all can stay. If y'all can go a little longer, that's cool with me. Or if y'all need to, wrap it up and do the family thing, that's cool too. So y'all just have to let me know.
In a little bit, I'll turn into a pumpkin.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I've been up since 5 this morning. So
Yeah, same.
Okay. Well, anything, like Harry, you got anything coming up that you want to talk about? People can tune into it, or any testing you're doing?
Nothing. I mean, we did a bunch of velocity testing on a bunch of revolver ammo, and then also checkpoint aim, point impact shift, which that is somewhat, it's going to be gun dependent, but basically you guys can watch that on YouTube Shorts. They'll be coming over the next couple of months. That's really the biggest thing right now.
Okay.
Cool.
What do you got, Trigger Bar?
Yeah, it should be tomorrow night. I've got a, everyone talks about the modern ballistics of the 9mm. So I'm going to do modern ballistics of the 45.
Okay.
We're going to go 45, 45 plus P, 45 super, and 460 Roland. And we'll do some gel tests and velocity tests. So it should be, I think it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, between you two guys, I was telling Harry this, between you two guys, I'm going to have to buy me that damn Garmin. Y'all are freaking driving me crazy with that.
That thing is so nice. Oh my gosh.
Where I can check all my velocities and stuff, because I'll be honest with you, way back in the day, I used a buddy's, chronograph, the old school one, and it was a pain in the ass to wag out and do all that stuff. And I used it, but that was 1,000 years ago. Again, bullets, everything's changed, velocities, since then, and that I did that testing back then. So I probably will be investing in one of those Garmin's pretty soon, the portable setups. I mean, that's nice. I mean, that would be cool to have, because there's a lot of things I'm like, man, I'm wondering how much velocity, like, for example, that Glock, little PDW, that thing's a freaking 6-inch. Well, actually, it's a 6.5-inch barrel because it's threaded with a comp. And I want to see what the hell it's pushing out, because I think it would be pretty astonishing what that thing's doing now.
You probably got a 357 plus P, 357 SIG plus P on your hand.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Even probably with 115s, because that thing's got to be sending it. So I'm really curious, because there's PDWs that are 9mm that's got that size barrel. So, and this is in a handgun. So I think that'd be cool to test. And then on my channel, I've got, some more testing. I've mounted more dots, set up even some not on a pistol. So I've got some stuff set up, but also I took one out of the safe that I haven't played with in a while, and I went and shot it, put a new dot on it, and I went and shot it, and it was a blast. I mean, I'm like, damn. I mean, this gun, well, I know a lot of people like it, but it's definitely slept on. And it was just, I was sitting there just shooting lights out with it, and I'm like, holy crap, I need to start carrying this gun again. because it was just so good and so fun. So that video will be coming out soon. I've got something special coming in for it too. It's being made right now. So I definitely want to test that out. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, I enjoyed you guys being on. It's always good to get different viewpoints. And like I said, this was not about if you buy budget, you're poor and you're that, blah, blah. That was not anything what this is about, because we all have different circumstances. And I just say, as long as you're armed and you can protect yourself and family, that's all you can ask for, as long as it works. And you have trained with it and you know that it functions properly. So definitely don't buy a gun and throw it in the sock drawer and think it's going to work. Please go out and try it. Just make sure you're good to go. But I appreciate y'all coming on. That really means a lot. And also, like I always say, there's a lot of people out here with channels. So please go over and subscribe to each other and stuff like that. Spread the love. If y'all haven't subscribed to Harry's Holster and Trigger Bar, please do. They're really good people, good friends of mine. And we want to share that love with everybody. So, but chat, y'all have a great evening. You guys can stay on here for 1 second. Y'all have a great evening. We will do this again next Wednesday. And remember, our nation's a very weak nation. So we all got to carry on. Thanks, everyone.